what is the truth about your relationships? Not what is easy to say or the path of least resistance, but what is the truth about the state or condition of your relationships? Hey sis, today I am diving into a brand new series on relationships. It's not limited to romantic relationships, but those are included. Yo, I'm talking about relationships that encompass us and somebody else. A spouse, a parent, a sibling, a friend, etc. And I mean a relationship, not an acquaintance, but rather someone that you are doing life with. I want to ask you a personal question, if you will, that you can answer in your leisure time. Sis, how are your relationships? This may require some additional homework where you actually sit down and make a list of all of your relationships and just take inventory of how you are doing. How is your level of honesty in those relationships? Your level of satisfaction, your level of compatibility, the communication, the mutual respect or lack thereof. Are there times in those relationships where you feel unhappy? Are you enabling them to do something? Or is that other person enabling you? Is the relationship abusive, controlling, codependent? Is it toxic? Is the relationship emotionally mature? Is it one-sided? Do you feel seen and heard? Is the relationship pushing you closer towards the you that God ultimately wants you to become? Is the relationship God-honoring in speech and action? Do you feel less than in this relationship? Sis, your answer to any of these questions may be an indicator that everything is great, and that would be awesome, or that one or more of your relationships needs your attention. In my book, Overcoming Father Wounds, Exchanging Your Pain for God's Perfect Love, I make a statement that I want to clarify here. I say emotions do not represent truth, and this is true. Do not always. And whereas this is true, our emotions can be indicators that something is very wrong. I distinctly remember God starting the conversation about my relationships a few years ago with a book. Now, those of you that have been with me for some time, you've been watching my videos, you may know which book I'm about to say, or at least think you do. Because I did a whole series on this book. It was so revolutionary for me. The book is Good Boundaries and Goodbyes by Lisa TerKeurst, and the very first chapter of her book is entitled, You Are Not Crazy. Now, before I ever read the book, I could resonate with the chapter title because there have been so many times where I questioned, am I crazy? I have wondered, is it me? Is it them? Is it us? Yeah, I feel some type of way about the words that they just said to me or their actions, and yet they seem to be perfectly fine. Am I crazy? Is there something wrong with me for feeling the way that I feel? The answer is no. This is an indication that something is wrong. This is what Lisa says in her book. She says, you want to save the relationship and get to a better place more than anything, but you've finally realized if they don't want things to change, you cannot change them. And now you're secretly starting to wonder if you are crazy, if you are the crazy one. Friend, you may be brokenhearted, you may be sad, you may be afraid and possibly angry, you may be fixated on trying to fix what isn't within your ability to fix, but you are not crazy. If you are smelling smoke, there is a fire. And the only reasonable option at this point is to either put the fire out or get yourself out of the fire. Let me just say, if you are hearing these words and saying, I am in the fire or I am on fire, God may be using this video to tell you something is wrong and you need to get some help. Now, I remember when I knew for certain that God was speaking to me in this book, when he was putting his sovereign finger on my relationships. It was when I read a list of statements meant to help you determine whether the person in relationship with you was exemplifying emotional maturity or not. Here is a few of the statements in that list. They resist needed conversations or turn them against you. They go back to unhealthy coping mechanisms when they have a bad day or a hard conversation. They lack self-awareness or are emotionally tone deaf. They have an out of proportion reaction to a conversation or the situation at hand. They tend not to own any of their parts of a conflict, always saying, but you, in response. They lack empathy in situations and do not consider how their choices will affect the other person. They refuse to acknowledge how unhealed trauma from their past, possibly even their childhood, needs to be worked out so it's not acted out. Their version of reality is not consistent with facts. These are just a few of the statements that left me saying, something's wrong. After hearing these statements, did any of your relationships come to mind? If not, and I sincerely hope the answer is no, that's awesome. But if so, I believe God is giving us, you and me, an opportunity to do something about it. With everything, we should begin with God. The scripture that came to mind as I was thinking about this video is John 8:32, and it says this, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." These are Jesus's words to the Jews who had placed their faith in him. And just before verse 32, he said, "Hold to my teaching, then you will be my disciples, and then you will know the truth, and it will set you free." Now, I do not think this is much different for those of us who have placed our faith in Jesus Christ. When we walk closely with God, when we hold to his truth, which he is truth, by the way, all will be revealed to us, including dysfunction in our relationships. The Spirit of God on the inside of us lets us know when there is a problem in our relationships. So let me ask you, as an easy yet sometimes painfully difficult question to respond to, what is the truth about your relationships? Not what is easy to say or safe or the path of least resistance, but what is the truth about the state or condition of your relationships? It may be an indication or an indicator that something is wrong. Since you and I must be open to and willing to respond to what God shows us. We cannot sweep it under the rug or attempt to act like nothing is wrong or just try to fake it in order to keep up appearances. This is not sustainable. We cannot fake the condition of our relationships. If our relationships are unhealthy, it will eventually take its toll on us and the relationship. I assure you of this. I am speaking from experience. And let me just say, the thing that is wrong can be in us. Or maybe it's in them, or maybe both. But we must be willing first to acknowledge that something is indeed wrong. And so each week I am going to talk about some of the indicators that I have discovered in my own life. Yes, girl. In hopes that it will be an aid to you. Join me next week as we talk about what does God say about being triggered.